Moin from the island of Juist. This greeting is used all day long throughout the entire north of Germany and the German North Sea and Baltic Sea islands. But remember, one moin is all you need. Moin moin is superfluous chit-chat. The moniker Töwerland means magic land and is believed to have its origins in the discovery of witches on the island. Today its connotation is less ominous, as it signifies the enchantment of the island's natural beauty. Our journey commences 300,000 years ago during the Saale glaciation, which succeeded the Holstein interglacial. During this time, marine sedimentation occurred in pre-existing seas within the area now known as the North Sea. The Saale glaciation preceded the Eemian warm period, which commenced around 130,000 years ago and concluded approximately 115,000 years ago. Subsequently, another glacial period, the Weichselian Ice Age, ensued, eventually ending 11,700 years ago. Although not as pronounced as previous ice ages, significant amounts of water became trapped in ice caps, causing the sea level to drop by as much as 120 meters below its current level. As a result, the North Sea underwent a transformation, drying out and transforming into a tundra. Then the ice caps shrank, leading to a 60-meter rise in sea levels. During this era, Great Britain was still linked to the mainland via a land bridge extending to the Dogger Bank. Around 8,000 years ago, as the glaciers melted and carried sediment, Great Britain reverted to being an island. The Dogger Bank, meanwhile, persisted as a sandbar. During this phase, the Wadden Sea began to take shape, with the North and East Frisian Islands emerging from sandbars and larger fragmented islands. Examples of such predecessors include the islands of Bocana, encountered by the Romans, and Band and Büse, the latter located between Juist and Norderney. These islands once occupied the region where the current East Frisian Islands are now situated, but were fragmented and shaped due to a series of flood and North Sea currents, as were the coastal areas. Juist was documented for the first time in 1398. Notably, all present-day East Frisian Islands have been gradually shifting eastwards. Juist, for instance, has currently seen an increase of land in the east, which is designated for wildlife preservation, while the North Sea is eroding the land in the west, posing a threat to the Bill and the Bill dunes. The St. Peter's flood of 1651 tore Juist into two parts, separating the Bill from the remainder of the island. The Christmas flood of 1717 exacerbated the situation. Both floods resulted in a significant loss of lives and structures, including the church in 1651. Although efforts to reunite the two island sections began as early as 1717 and sand deposits gradually reduced the gap between them, it wasn't until 1928 to 1932 that these two portions were successfully secured through dune construction efforts. During the dune building process in 1932, a storm surged and disrupted them once more, resulting in the formation of the Hammersee. By 1935, rain had transformed the lake into a freshwater body, which is currently undergoing a regrettable drying process, aggravated by the influx of sand. The present-day Protestant church was constructed in 1964. 4 of its 5 predecessors, located further west, succumbed to the forces of storms and the sea. The last one was demolished despite objections of the island's residents. Throughout the centuries, the islander sailors and traders suffered from piracy and buccaneering, which involved taking hostages for ransom and plundering islands and ships. This was especially prevalent during the reign of the French Sun King Louis XIV, L'État c'est moi, who governed from 1661 to 1715 and sought to extend his influence by issuing letters of marque. These letters, which came at a high price, ensured that buccaneers were not imprisoned but regarded as prisoners of war who had to be released, sent back to their home countries, and even provided money for their return journey. The funds for these letters of marque were raised through stock trading. This period of buccaneering came to an end with the Peace of Rastatt in 1714. The islanders would primarily sustain themselves through the cultivation of vegetables, fishing, and, to a limited degree, the raising of farm animals. The whaling era brought them a modest measure of prosperity. Another supplementary source of income originated from recovering cargo from shipwrecks, with islanders consistently receiving a portion. The governing authorities would install stewards to oversee this process. While the islanders prioritized the retrieval of cargo, the rescue of drowning sailors held little importance, and frequently they would be left to their fate, particularly due to the absence of assets for their rescue. In one such incident, when the visiting ship captain on the island of Borkum noticed that shipwrecked sailors could have been saved with basic boats but were left to perish, an islander is said to have commented, "What is a human life after all?" On November 6, 1854, the Johanne, a ship carrying 216 emigrants for the USA, men, women, children, babies even, ran aground and sank off the coast of Spiekeroog, resulting in the tragic loss of 77 lives. This devastating incident was widely covered in newspapers and stirred public outcry. It raised the question, why was there no such rescue service on the German coasts, especially with the approaching modern era of industrialization, when a similar service already existed in England? Eventually, in 1865, a precursor to what would soon become the German Maritime Search and Rescue Service was established. The initial rescuers wore cork vests for their protection as they braved storms and waves in boats that had to be hauled onto the beach by horses. In 1783, Juist's parson, Gerhard Otto Christophianus, 1741 to 1805, penned a letter to King Frederick the Great of Prussia, proposing the establishment of a seaside resort. With the whaling industry in decline, he aimed to provide an alternative source of income for the island's residents. Janus was the first to suggest this idea, although his letter received no response. England had long been a pioneer in this endeavor since 1751, and a decade later his contemporary Georg Christoph Lichtenberg, 1742 to 1799, a philosopher and physicist, reintroduced the concept. This time it garnered support from one of the most prominent medical practitioners of the era, Christoph Wilhelm Hufeland, the personal physician of Prussian King Frederick William II. The first German coastal retreat, Heiligendamm on the Baltic Sea, was founded in 1793. In 1800, Norderney emerged as a seaside destination. Previously considered unpredictable and perilous, the sea would now evoke romantic sentiments enhanced by poets and artists. Despite the fact that trips to the coast initially required several days of travel, both the aristocracy and the rising bourgeoisie eagerly made their way to the seaside. Back then, the beach activities were segregated by gender, a tradition still reflected in the names Herrenstrand, Men's Beach, and Damenstrand, Ladies' Beach. Horses pulled carts into the sea, where the bathers would change into their swimwear before wading into the water, following the English instruction, 3 dips and out. At that time, very few people knew how to swim. Over time, the beaches transitioned into family-friendly places, complete with stringent dress codes for swimwear, and by the 1920s, the activities at seaside resorts closely resembled those of today, with sunbathing on the beach no longer being frowned upon. In 1807, Juist was incorporated into the French Kingdom of Holland through the Tilsit Peace Treaty and remained under French occupation until 1816, when the island was integrated into the Kingdom of Hanover. Finally, in 1840, there was an initial effort to create a seaside resort on the island of Juist, but the endeavor was abandoned in 1858 due to a lack of visitors. In 1861, the first maritime rescue station was established on the island of Juist. After its reabsorption into Prussia in 1866, Juist was once again opened as a seaside resort, and this time it saw a growing number of holidaymakers. The 2 world wars disrupted tourism and led to economic hardship. Especially during World War II, anti-aircraft artillery installations were established, and Juist was subjected to bombings that resulted in casualties. The German Maritime Search and Rescue Service, along with the Red Cross, saved both allies and enemies. Because of its remote island location, National Socialism had less influence on Juist compared to the mainland. During World War II, prisoners of war were detained on the island, and after the war it provided shelter for war refugees. Throughout the year, several notable individuals arrived on the island and actively contributed to its development. Otto Leege, 1862 to 1951. In 1882 he came to the island as a teacher and was assigned the additional responsibility of establishing a telegraph station. Before long he initiated his studies in botany and ornithology. Upon setting foot on Memmert Island, he quickly realized that hunters were systematically harming birds and raiding their nests. Nestlings were perishing from hunger, adult bird carcasses were scattered about, and injured birds, victims of gunshots, were helplessly fluttering through the dunes. Additionally, hunters introduced rabbits to the island, intending to hunt them later. Leege, concerned that these rabbits were jeopardizing his dune preservation efforts by devouring the planted vegetation, began hunting them as well. He appealed to the authorities for bird protection measures on the island, which were granted in 1906, resulting in a strict prohibition to enter the island from May 1st to August 15th. In 1907, Memmert was officially designated a bird colony, and by 1924 it had gained recognition as a nature reserve. Leege and his family resided on Memmert during school holidays, and his daughter-in-law continued his conservation efforts, with her daughter eventually marrying the succeeding ornithological warden. In 1903, on the island of Juist, he played a role in establishing what would later be known as the goldfish ponds. Between 1926 and 1937, Otto Leege spearheaded an initiative that led to the planting of more than 50,000 trees to the west of Hammer Bay, which is now lovingly referred to as the Little Wood, or Wäldchen in German. In addition, he served as the Nature Conservation Commissioner for the governmental district of Aurich between 1926 and 1934. In 1942 he received an honorary Doctor of Philosophy from Göttingen University and was honored with the Goethe Medal for contributions to art and science. The Dr. Otto Leege Nature Trail on the island of Juist was unveiled in 2012. From 1922 to 1924, a biology school station was founded under the guidance of Kurt Mosbach, who held degrees in philosophy and natural sciences. Martin Luserke established the Schule am Meer, or School by the Sea, in 1924, complete with its own theatre and employing progressive teaching methods. However, due to economic circumstances, the school was forced to shut down in 1934. In 1933, Willy Troltenier, 1899 to 1976, arrived on the island and took on the role of a vocational teacher and the position of director at the former island school. During World War II, he established the Air Raid Protection Association to safeguard the civilian population. In August 1939, he was conscripted and subsequently became a prisoner of war in England, being released in 1946. Upon returning to the island, he faced a dire school situation due to the influx of refugee children. Troltenier began to gather his own teaching materials and organize school meals. Thanks to his unwavering efforts, the school gradually expanded to include various secondary school options, preparing students for schools on the mainland. After retiring in 1965, he continued to focus on local history. Troltenier maintained friendships with Otto Leege and Fritz Hafner. Fritz Hafner, born in Vienna in 1877, died on the island of Juist in 1964. He was a nature painter and art teacher who helped found the Schule am Meer on the 1st of May 1925, collaborating with Martin Luserke and other fellow teachers. Alf Depser, born in Nuremberg in 1899 and died on the island of Juist in March 1990. He was a German graphic artist, painter, illustrator, and woodcarver. Hans Kolde, born in Esens in 1925, died on the island of Juist in April 2024. He was a flight instructor and held the position of honorary director at the Küstenmuseum until 2011. In recognition of his contributions to cultural initiatives in Eastern Friesland, he was honored with the Order of Merit of the Federal Republic of Germany. He continued to be actively involved with the Juist Foundation until his passing. Johann Heinz Mindermann had pursued a legal education and also was a marine and landscape painter. He lived from 1872 to 1959, relocating to the island of Norderney after World War I. Rolf Mindermann, his son, also a marine and landscape painter, was born in 1945 and passed in 2019 on the island of Juist. Holger Mindermann, grandson of Johann, son of Rolf Mindermann, an art gallerist on Juist, retired in 2022. Reiner Behrends, 1942 to 2023, owned the household appliance store on the island and was a well-known figure to every holiday visitor. He is credited with having coined the slogan, "Juist, the most beautiful sandbar in the world." In 1650, the tiny island of Memmert was documented for the first time, initially identified as a sandbar and referred to as Memmert Sand until the 1950s. The first permanent ornithological warden on Memmert Island was Otto Leege Jr., the son of Otto Leege. Following his early passing, a large wooden cross was erected on the island's tallest northern dune, the Cross Dune, as a tribute to his memory. Due to the continuous erosion of dunes and loss of land caused by the encroaching North Sea, the warden's house, originally constructed in 1908, had to be relocated and reconstructed multiple times, in 1924, 1957, and in 1971, on the Cross Dune. In September 1931, a motorboat carrying 19 athletes from Borkum who had taken part in a tournament on Juist ran aground off Memmert Island and was demolished by the waves. One athlete successfully swam to Memmert Island to alert the rescue services and local fishermen by phone. 15 of the young athletes drowned. In remembrance of this horrific accident, a wooden cross was raised on Memmert Island. This cross has since been moved and now stands near the old lighthouse on the island of Borkum. Given the eastward shift that all islands are undergoing, the adjacent Kachelotplate or shoal to the west may eventually merge with Memmert Island. Built in 1802, the islanders' house in today's Janus Park was the long-standing home of Wilhelmine Marie Focken-Rass, affectionately known as Grandma Rass, 1846 to 1930, for nearly 84 years. Her daughter Emine, or Miele as she was called, 1885 to 1969, continued to live in the same house until her passing. Both of them served as bathing attendants on the beach during the bathing culture era. Today, the house is a tea room and a restaurant. From 1910 to 1911, a Catholic church was built to serve Roman Catholic vacationers. The water tower, or Dornkat bottle. Positioned on the island's highest dune, this tower stands at 13 meters, surpassing all other island structures in height. Erected between 1927 and 1928, it houses a 250 cubic meter storage tank that remains essential for the island's water supply, especially during the summer months. In 1982, the final island train, which transported holidaymakers from the ship to the harbor, marked the conclusion of its service before the harbor underwent reconstruction. In 1998, the iconic White Kur Hotel, a prominent feature on Juist's skyline, had a glass cupola added to its structure. In 1939, a lighthouse was established on Memmert Island, along with electric power supply. However, in 1986, the lighthouse had become non-operational because its base was submerged in the North Sea due to dune erosion. Consequently, the lantern room, with its glass-enclosed housing at the top, was disassembled and transferred to Juist for preservation. On Juist, a new lighthouse was constructed and the disassembled lantern room was integrated at the top. The lighthouse no longer serves as a navigational aid, but now functions solely as a decorative feature, illuminating the island. The old lighthouse on the island of Memmert was eventually demolished. The sail-shaped viewing platform and the new marina were officially opened in 2008. On Juist you will find 2 medical doctors, a dentist, physiotherapists, thalassotherapy, and an optometrist. Given the absence of a hospital on the island, all emergency cases are airlifted to the mainland. Juist prohibits the use of private cars. If you are traveling to Juist by car, you will need to park it on the mainland at Norddeichmole in designated large parking areas. Shuttle buses are available to transport you from the parking lots to the ferry terminal. The public trains have a direct stop right next to the ferry terminal. Prior to embarking on the ferry, you'll need to load your luggage onto baggage carts, which are subsequently transported onto the ferry. Be sure to take note of the assigned number and letter for your cart. Small boats provide an additional ferry service to Juist, and there is also the option to reach the island by small planes, as Juist has an airfield. The only vehicles present on the island are those belonging to medical practitioners, ambulances, and firefighters. Additionally, the police force has recently been provided with an electric car. All transportation services are conducted using horse-drawn carriages and coaches. On Juist you can enjoy leisurely strolls along the beach, rent roofed wicker beach chairs, take a swim in the sea during high tide. Swimming times are posted on a beach board, and in bad weather there is also a public indoor seawater swimming pool. You can go for rides to the Bill in the west or the airfield in the east, participate in various guided tours conducted in German, explore the Küstenmuseum in the Lok and the adjacent pottery shop, see art exhibitions, engage in shopping activities in the Ostdorf, and book boat trips to visit Seal Bank or nearby islands. Please note that excursions from Juist to other islands are tide dependent and there is no regular schedule. When venturing into the Wadden Sea, please avoid doing so alone and instead join a group led by a trained guide. The Nationalparkhaus organizes guided beach tours that offer insights into marine wildlife. You can also learn about other activities by referring to the Strandlopen booklet. Juist also has a cinema. As the evening approaches, people like to gather on the beach and at various lookout points to see the sunset over the sea. If you are an early riser, you can also catch the summer sunrise over the sea. The end of the vacation usually brings a sense of melancholy, with everybody eagerly anticipating their return the following year.